Hello friends, Nayaswami Hriman here, broadcasting to you on the subject matter and the theme of the original teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. How about a few bars of this simple chant composed originally by Swami Kriyananda? Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. I am thine, I am thine. Today I'd like to talk to you about something that occurred to me the other day. You know, I've mentioned in a prior broadcast that I've been listening to recordings of talks by Alan Watts, a British philosopher and a well-known speaker. I think of him as an earlier generation to Wayne Dyer, meaning he addressed audiences of wider audiences and was an educator really in the philosophies of Eastern religion. He focused at different times on Hinduism and on Buddhism and on Zen Buddhism and so forth. And his talks are quite interesting, no matter what one thinks of him as a person and a personality and so on. He's an excellent speaker and very well informed. He spoke from learning, not from realization, so he never styled himself as a guru and so on. But nonetheless, I find his talks interesting, and as I said earlier, his talks, his presence, his teachings, his books, many books, 25 or so, were very important to me during those college years. He died in 1973. I graduated in 1972. But I only mention him because I was listening to some of his talks on Zen Buddhism, and I'm not competent to really talk about Zen Buddhism per se, but it did make me think of some remarks that Paramhansa Yogananda made in his original lessons about the history of Buddhism in India, and Swami Kriyananda as well. Yogananda said that one reason Buddhism fell into whatever it is, disrepute wouldn't be quite the word, but left India. One reason Buddhism largely left India in the first millennia AD was because, and this is a strange explanation for which I've never found any documentation or third-party corroboration, but Yogananda did say that the mixing of the monks and the nuns, the genders, was one of the reasons Buddhism, you might say, left or fell or whatever. In any case, I don't really know that that's the case from other parties, but Swami Kriyananda made the remark that I referred to in my talk on Sunday yesterday about why the Buddhists came up with the idea of bodhisattva, because they wanted to take a rain check on nothingness. I always laugh when I think of that, because he was really just joking. Buddhism is a wonderful teaching and religion, and as Jesus was a Jew, Buddha was a Hindu, and where I want to go with this is you could say that there's three kinds of people. Normally I say there's two kinds of people, and in this case I will also say it, but for starters I'm going to say three. There are those who have no interest in spirituality and live for themselves. They're not bad people. Some of them surely are good people, but they have no interest in spiritual matters. And so the other two are those who have an interest in virtue and those who have an interest in spirituality. Now, I just said among the first group that They could be good or bad, but I guess what I really mean is most people have no particular interest in being good more than they need to be, or more than they are more naturally by who they are. There's no self-improvement seeking, you might say. But then among the two kinds of people I want to talk about, there are those who seek virtue, yes, for its own sake, but also because maybe they've been exposed to religion and have some vague sense of that being a good thing. In other words, they're predisposed to virtue and they're predisposed to religion, but for the most part, they don't really think deeply about religion, and but they do feel in tune with doing good and being good. And that, frankly, I think describes most people who would describe themselves as having a religious affiliation. Naturally, among those, there are some who fear going to hell, if that's part of their religion, and some who want to go to heaven, and that's generally part of all religions, except perhaps Buddhism. Buddhism, as I understand it, offers to one who is good and virtuous a better lifetime next time around. Buddha chose not to speak of the afterlife and of things more metaphysical, and that's the way of the Stoic, as I kind of see it. It's the way of virtue, and it's a good way, and chop wood, carry water appeals to many people who are more in the, I don't know about in the body, but on this earth. And in that way, I think of large swaths of Buddhism, but also I think much of the Jewish faith is not so interested in the afterlife, as I understand it. And maybe they don't chop wood and carry water. Perhaps they have somebody else do that for them. Just a joke. But they are very interested in obeying the laws of Moses. Although, let's face it, no one but the most extreme Orthodox Jews really focus on the laws of Moses. Judaism has evolved, like all religions have evolved in their outward rituals and rules and so forth. So, but here's the thing I want to get at, is that when your religion sincerely, and a good religion, has no particular orientation or interest in the afterlife or anything on more subtle realities, that it can't help but incline to be towards materialism. And we certainly see that in the, at least the stereotype of the poor Jews is that they are business people and interested in money and all the things that they're accused of, which is, I know, unfair, but when you don't have something broader to appeal to, it's all too easy to fall back on the here and now and the body. And there's a lot to be good to be said about the here and now, but it's tricky. Same thing in Buddhism, chop wood and carry water. You know, when Alan Watts was talking about Zen Buddhism, he described Satori, enlightenment, in terms so prosaic. It's as if you chop wood and carry water, and you know, the irony is that Zen Buddhism has all sorts of humor about the interchange between the teacher and the student, and what enlightenment constitutes, but at the same time, it has a reputation for being a bit glum, a bit overly grounded, you know, staring at your navel and all. And so it's tricky without an aspiration or an understanding of higher realities and one's own higher potential. The do-gooders of life, the religions of life, just sort of bog down. And, even humanitarianism, what do they call that? It's not a religion, of course, but humanitarianism, I guess. But even that, you see, you get into politics and everyone's squabbling and, this legislation and, fine-tuning it and so on and so forth. In the autobiography of a yogi, Paramhansa Yogananda wrote one of the few, if any, I think perhaps the only scathing paragraph in that whole book, in the chapter on Ananda Mohima, where he makes comments like the nations of the earth pay punctilious respect at the shrine of God with their humanitarian efforts, but it simply distracts them from God, from the first law of God, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart. And so you see what I mean. Those are all good things, and I love Buddhism, and I admire Zen Buddhism, but, and it's for a lot of people. But it doesn't take you far enough. The reason I moved from my interest in Buddhism in my early years with Alan Watts and others was it didn't have the feeling, the heart feeling. It didn't have an aspiration that could satisfy my heart. And so, at first I was suspicious of joy and bliss because I had focused so much on the law of duality that I was suspicious of this joy, you see, is what's the opposite to that. And so I had to come to the understanding and inner experience that the joy of the soul is not second, is not dual. It's our very nature. And to aspire to a view of reality as transcendental, as Satchitanandam, as immortality, ever existing, all-knowing, omniscient, and ever blissful. This is what satisfies the heart, not the thought, in my opinion, at least, of dissolving the self into the void. Poof, you're gone. It's okay, especially when you're suffering, or just all addicted to stuff. You just want to get rid of yourself. I can understand that, but joy is of the soul, joy is of the heart. So let's accept, admire, and respect our fellow aspirants, religionists, if you will. But I'm in for the long haul. I'm in it for the bliss. Okay, joy to you, bliss to you.